Good afternoon. I'm Kay Reed with the Dibble Institute, and I'm thrilled to invite you to our April 2025 webinar, where we're going to be introducing our newest program, still hot off, not even quite hot off the press, still a little pre-press at this point, but Project With. And I especially want to welcome my friend and colleague and collaborator, John Lewis, who is our speaker today. He and I met, I don't know, 20 years ago, and it's been fun ever since. So a few housekeeping tips. If you can't hear us, and you can read the screen, if you can't hear us, please read the screen. And probably the easiest way for you to regain audio is to use your phone and call in, or stop, go to webinar, come back in, one or the other. There's a hand on your GoToWebinar control panel. And so I would like to know if you could go find your hand and tell us how many of you this is your very first Dibble webinar. We've been doing this for 12 years now, but I'm sure there's a few people in the world for whom this is new, and we really want to welcome you. So let's see how many of you are new. Okay, well, that's good, about 20%. So welcome to you, and welcome back to everyone else. I just can't imagine that people don't have the second Wednesday of every month at 1 Pacific highlighted as the moment they're going to be here at our webinar. We have a handout today, the sample lesson, so you can download that. And please use the question box for questions for our speaker today. Don't use the chat box. They're joking about the chat. So a little bit about the Dibble Institute. This is Charlie and Helen Dibble. They're our founders. Charlie really loved young people. He was an engineer by trade, and he saw that relationships, either family relationships or personal relationships or lack thereof, were a big factor in young people's success or derailment. And so he consulted with researchers of the day. This would be in the late 80s, got the latest of information about what people knew about relationship development. And when he said, "What are you doing to reach young people?" he said, they said, "We don't know. It's really hard to reach young people." So that's when he started the Dibble Institute, around his dining room table, and I was lucky enough to be there with him. And so today, in this last year, we reached about 100, that's the royal we, right? It's you, actually, reached 115,000 youth last year. The Dibble Institute is a national, nonprofit, independent organization. We're curriculum developers, and we don't provide direct services. Direct services come from you, who are doing the really excellent work on the ground. And we can't tell you, we just appreciate it so much, because this is a really important part of young people's lives. Our mission is to help young people sustain and build healthy interpersonal and romantic relationships. So not a lot of people talk about romantic relationships. It can be awkward or difficult, and we try to make it easy, research-based, and engaging for young people to talk about their love lives. And certainly we've seen how well that works for them. Some of our values, we're big fans of research, which means that when you teach a Dibble program, it's based on the latest research that we know. It also means that sometimes, science isn't complete. So someone asked, is my chat, see, if your chat isn't, so Amy, go to the questions box. Chat, they're just kidding when they say that it uses, so go to the question box. Anyway, we believe in research. Research can, we find out new things all the time in science. We thought, I don't know, wine was great, and now not so much. Or, I'm hoping they never find anything bad about chocolate. But so just to say, we adjust our materials as the research expands and our knowledge grows. Secondly, we're big fans of stable, safe, and nurturing families. And this can be in any kind of, it could be single parents who create this environment. It could be grandparents. It could be cohabiting parents. We happen to be big fans of married parents, but that's not the silver bullet. The silver bullet is safe, stable, and nurturing, however you get there. And we also believe relationship education is for everyone, and that's why we're super excited to have this program that deals with very vulnerable youth involved in our systems, either child welfare or juvenile justice, because everybody can get better at relationships. And that includes me, and maybe it includes you. So so welcome to the club of being human and working to improve our relationships. So John, you want to pop up? So this is John Lewis. Besides many other things, you can see he's a Dodgers fan. Oops, sorry, wrong way. Oops. He's a Dodgers fan. He has a hat to fit every occasion and every outfit that he wears. John just has a heart for young people. I really admire that about him. He's been working for years and years in youth services, and specifically moving into this area of systems involved youth. He's just a master at this, and a master of running federal grants and making things happen. So John, I'm going to turn the rest of this over to you. Thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Kay. Yeah, so me and Kay have known each other for quite a long time. I've used a number of the different DIBBLE programs over the years with different federal grants back to healthy marriage and fatherhood and a number of things. And so we're going to kind of go on a journey today to kind of help you understand where Project With came from and how it came about over the last 5 or 6 years that it's been around. And a lot of people ask, what does WITH stand for, when we first kind of introduce the idea of Project WITH, and if it's an acronym or what is it. But it's really just about the word with and the power of who you do life with. And so throughout the curriculum, we really talk about relationships with all kinds of people in regards to who you do life with is really gonna tell us a lot about your future and where you're going. And the tagline for Project With that we came up with many moons ago was stories about love, life, and relationships for system-involved youth. And so let's move on to the next slide, and we'll kind of dive into our journey with what we're hoping to accomplish over the next 45 minutes or so. You're gonna recognize the power of storytelling. We're gonna kind of highlight the theory of change around storytelling that kind of helped develop Project With, and then understand the overall theory of change. Then we're gonna kind of dive into the curriculum. We're gonna, the handout that's in there, the Eagle story, we're gonna kind of break down what a lesson looks like, and we're gonna look at kind of the table of contents and what the 12 different lessons kind of go through, and then also have a short discussion in regards to the 2 impact evaluations that was done by WestEd, which is our outside evaluator along the way with the different grants that we kind of took place. All right, next slide. One of the things I love, and we use stories, and you'll see that we use 12 different stories throughout it, but a lot of times we keep things close to us that kind of have a memory of something. And so I want you to think about, and like if we were in a classroom or in somewhere, I'd have you, because I don't even think you can drop it in the chat, but what is one item you have that has a story connected to it? Whether it's something on your keychain, it's something in your backpack, your purse, something on a mantle, that kind of resonates because we kind of get connected within stories with characters, and there's usually a different item that usually when I run into people or talk to people about stories and connections, there's usually something, whether it's an item or something that reminds them of somebody else. And so with that, let's keep going to the next slide. All right, where did this all begin? So Kay popped in and popped out, but where did this all begin? So it was about 7 years ago. Myself and 2 other individuals, Martin Batista and Alex Sanchez, were having a discussion in East LA in regards to our work with justice-involved youth and kids that were in the Los Angeles County detention centers. And we knew that it was like, it would be great if there was somehow for us to work with them inside before they come outside, and then also utilize like different experiences, whether at a camp or like a fun camp or a summer camp, to help connect them relationally and help them along the way. And so along with that, we were kind of having this discussion, and then all of a sudden, this opportunity came out with TPP funding that was looking for innovative ways to help teen pregnancy. And so at the time, I was with Urban Strategies, and I had felt networks with a number of different agencies and the Dibble Institute. And Kay actually, me and her got on the phone, and she said that Dibble had this book that was collecting dust from the 80s called The Art of Loving Well. And The Art of Loving Well used stories in regards to helping individuals kind of talk about relationships, both romantic relationships and other types of relationships. And it was a TPP funded program back in the 80s when it was developed. And so we came up with the idea, and we went back to like the different partners that Urban Strategies had at the time within in Southern California right there, and said, what if we kind of wrote a grant that used storytelling as the medium, and we would figure out, using the Art of Loving Well, finding what stories would connect with system-involved youth and kind of develop. And we didn't even have the name Project With at that time. And so amazingly, I think it was in 2018, September 29th, just how you find out about every federal grant every year, we were amazed. Urban Strategies got funded in regards to a formative evaluation, where we went on this journey that started with us all kind of diving into the Art of Loving Well, and kind of came out of it with 12 different stories that we said, hey, let's test these out inside LA County probation locations and for the next 2 years, and kind of develop it. We came up with the logo and the name Project With, about who you're going to do life with. And so we went on this journey, and then 2 years later, in 2020, we were awarded another grant to actually rigorously evaluate Project With, and we'll look at kind of that, the outcomes of that at the very end of the webinar. So that's kind of where everything got started with Project With, and we used also a model of, and we'll talk about that, of using individuals that are credible messengers that have similar backgrounds to the youth that we're working with. And so let's keep moving forward. Okay, on to the next slide. And so why stories? And a lot of times we kind of fade away from using stories. But when we think about, like, whether parables in the Bible, indigenous times, if people wanted to pass down values, they would tell a story. Or even think about your favorite children's book, like that you think about back in the day. Why do parents read children's book? It's not just for entertainment, but each children's book usually has some kind of story connected to it, and that story is trying to connect to, like, teach a value or teach a life lesson or teach something. And so as we look at kind of the theory behind storytelling, move on to the next slide, we kind of look at some research around storytelling. And so with this, a lot of times stories kind of put us in a space where it's not like someone's telling us what to do. We're being connected to this, like, character in the story, and as we kind of unpack and we kind of catch a ride with that character on the story aspect, we begin to kind of be very emotionally connected to, you know, whatever ideas are going on in the story. The same way as if you're watching a good movie, or you're watching a TV show, or you're reading a good book, as you connect to that individual in the story. Move on to the next slide. And so with that, we found that it was a great approach in regards to, as you're going to work with system-involved youth, and as we're not really telling people what to do. What we're doing is we're going to unpack this story and see where our lives connect to the story, where your lives connect to the story, and what we all can learn as we go along this journey of reading these stories together and unpacking them. And so there's this arc of a story. So on to the next slide, we kind of look at this way that what takes place in the story. And so as we utilize storytelling, the old normal is where the world is at it is. So wherever I'm entering this story, or wherever the participants are entering, we're all at this normal that we're at, whether we're wherever we're at in life. And so as we dive into the story, we go to the clear goal, and what does the protagonist want? What does this character want out of this? And usually, as this character goes along, whether it's in a story or something else, they have obstacles. And so as we gotta go through these obstacles, it's the challenge that creates that tension. And then we usually have external allies that are gonna help us get through that. And then there's that struggle, and then we get to whatever that new normal is, whatever is that new story or whatever we're supposed to learn as we process through this story. And so that's where we kind of got this whole idea about storytelling. And so with that, we're going to look at some of the stories that we use within Project With. So we have 12, we actually have 13 stories because you're going to see that 12 has 2 different stories connected to it. So these are the first 4 stories that we utilize. Two Wolves is a very famous indigenous story that really talks about that we have these 2 different things that are going on inside us in this tension, and it just begins to kind of introduce them to that love and relationships are a journey. And the other aspect with this is each story and each lesson has a big idea that we teach to, and so the story teaches to it, the activities teach to it. We created videos, or we found videos that kind of connect to each story, and then they have a journal that we'll see in a minute that also is connected to it. And so all throughout each lesson, we're really just hammering one big idea in a multiple different ways. And so like lesson 1, Two Wolves, love and relationships are a journey. And then lesson 2 is 2 different student poems, being male and uncertainty. Just starts with maturity, starts with knowing who you are. Lesson 3 is an old Russian fable called The Old Grandfather and His Little Grandson, which helps us understand that about love and relationships from our families. And then Alone is a poem from Maya Angelou, and it just talks about to survive in this world, we need connections with others. On to the next. Lesson 5 is Our Deepest Fear, and we use it's a poem, Our Deepest Fear, from Marianne Williamson, and kind of what we unpack within this lesson is the movie Coach Carter and a number of things, because this piece of literature, this poem, is really prevalent in the Coach Carter movie. And it's really interesting because most of the kids that are in detention centers that we've worked with, they've all seen Coach Carter. So I think a lot of kids have seen it, and so it's really easy for us to ask questions about Coach Carter and bring that all up. Lesson 6 is Ancestor, which is a story about a father, and it's written by Jimmy Baca. And most of the kids we work with have heard of Jimmy Baca, not because they heard of Jimmy Baca, but because he also wrote Blood In, Blood Out, so a movie that a lot of the youth that we work with have watched or seen. And so it really unpacks that love and relationships are often complex and complicated. We talk a lot about fatherhood in this because the Ancestor poem is about his father. Lesson 7 is a block party, and so real love means getting to know the other person, respecting them, and acting responsibly for their well-being. And so this, we talk a lot about coercion, domestic violence, or like also sexual assault and different aspects, or just really unpacking what true like consent means, and actually, you know, valuing other people and all those things. On to the next slide. Eagle, and we're going to dive into Eagle in a little bit because that's going to be the handout in the sample lesson that we're going to kind of talk through. The big idea about waiting and self-control can lead to committed and mature relationships. And then lesson 9 has 2 different stories, Jace's story and Mia's story. And then those are more about teen pregnancy from a guy's point of view and a girl's point of view. And so we unpack those and have very interesting conversations along the way. And then the last 3, Through the Eyes of the Heart, is a story that like appreciating and loving people and caring for people for who they are, and not just for kind of their appearance or outward aspects. And then A Brother's Silence in lesson 11 is a really deep discussion in regards to death. And a lot of youth that we have worked with have dealt with death in a number of different ways, whether family or friends in the community. And then the last one is lesson 12 is I love you, which is actually, we unpack these marriage vows that someone had written, Elmer Robinson, and kind of pull out 3 different focuses within that aspect. So that's kind of our 12 lessons and the journey that kind of we go on. And so with that, I'm gonna quickly kind of unpack and give you the framework and what a lesson kind of looks like. And so we're gonna dive into Eagle, which every lesson kind of has the same format. So it has the big idea and the skills and then the summary. So the big idea, waiting and self-control can lead to committed and mature relationships. We learn to love from our families and our communities. Human relationships are complex, take time, and sexual relationships are a big deal. And so each thing has a summary, and so that kind of helps help you frame the story and understand how to frame the story. And then the next page just kind of talks you through what are the different materials, what video clips, and what are all the things that you're going to need in regards to this, because also we've put a lot of thought and process into what can go into detention centers and what can't go into detention centers. And so even like Project With, when the journals are for sale, you can get them with staples or without staples. And then a lot of times we've tried to create all the different activities and the materials that would be able to get into. And even if you just get down to a small golf pencil and the journals, you could pretty much do everything else with a tablet and different things, as we'll talk about that. But we've tried to create the material list as simplified as possible to help you if you're going to actually bring this into detention centers. On to the next. So this is the kind of layout of each lesson. We have 3 different sections in the lesson plan. You'll see the amount of time dedicated to each of them. And you'll see in the first section, welcome, rewind, and on-ramp. And so we always you'll see in the lesson when you do the welcome, we do a check-in of 1 to 10 just to kind of see within the group how people are feeling that day. And it's 1, I feel horrible, crappy, all the way to 10, that best day ever. And so our facilitators kind of use this to kind of gauge the temperature of the room in regards to if kids are all checking in at 4s or 5s because something went wrong, maybe they got news from home that is not good, or just something happened within the facility that they're residing in. So you kind of get an idea of where the kids are at. Then the second aspect is rewind, and you'll see the use of Post-its in a little bit, but what happens at the end of each lesson in that the journal reflection and during the wrap up is they kind of write whatever their takeaway was from that lesson. And so you take those Post-its and you bring them back to the next lesson, and during rewind you kind of read what they state. Instead of asking them what they remember, you actually read what they shared, what their voices said at the end of the last lesson, and then you kind of ask them anything else you remember or thoughts about the previous lesson. And then some type of on-ramp is kind of going to help us transition to whatever that new theme is going to be. So as you can see here, Bronx Tale is a movie, and if you haven't seen the movie, we use the segment of a YouTube video called The Door Test. And so it's a funny just short clip where it's in regards to an older individual in the neighborhood in New York telling a younger individual, how do you know if this girl is the real one? And it's all about if she reaches across and pops the lock after he opened the door and let her in. And if she does that, then she's the one. If she's not, kick her to the curb. So, but that kind of transitioned us to the theme of the Eagle story, because the Eagle story is a Native American story about how eagles pick their mates for life. And they kind of put them through a test in different aspects in regards to helping them understand whether this is an individual that the eagle is going to stay with for life and they fly away together, or if she keeps into that pursuit. And so we kind of read the story, unpack it, have a lot of discussion around it, and then we have another video called Love on Top that we developed in regards to just really when you're looking for a romantic partner or your future spouse or whatever it is, how do you know if they're the right person, and what are things that you're gonna put up with, what are things that you're just not gonna put up with. And so that gets us to the wrap up of each lesson, and each of those, and we'll look at a journal here in a minute, has a journal reflection aspect where it's asking them a question for them to write in their journal. And then there's that big main idea, and that's where they take sticky notes, write their thoughts, and put them up on the sticky notes. So that's kind of like the flow. Every single lesson has those 3 sections, and it kind of also helps the youth kind of know, like, these are the sections as we're going through it, so they even have a better idea, like what's next or how long is this going to take, and all those different things. Next slide. All right, so this is the journal, and we've kind of, and also the front of the journal looks very much like a composition book. So before we had journals and we had fancy things and all these different things, we actually just use composition books for kids to write in. And as we developed these journals over the last 5 years, we've also added lots of places for kids to doodle and like shade in and keep themselves busy in regards to just interacting with it. But also we kind of create less is more also within these journals, because we have you know, the big idea, and then we have the lesson, and then on the next page you'll see also more of the story, and then there's this journal reflection. And so it's a place for them to actually engage with the story, and then actually have that journal reflection. And just like in most programming with different classes that we've done, we keep the journal and just tell them, and after they're done writing, put their name on it, and then bring it back to them each time, and then have them actually keep the journal at the very, very end of all 12 lessons. All right, so I love this quote by Steve Jobs. It's the most powerful person in the world is the storyteller. And so kind of in the model of Project With, and the whole aspect of the development of Project With, there's kind of 3 phases to thinking about stories. One is the actual story, and we kind of just went through the curriculum. But one of the things that we've learned from the very start of this, and even before we developed Project With, was that the person telling the story is very crucial. And so as we move to the next slide, we've always used credible messengers, and these are individuals that have similar backgrounds, whether they grew up in the same communities. I would say probably 60–70% of our facilitation team over the years has actually spent time in prison for a certain amount of time, or in juvenile detention. We have individual Freddie right now. He's at Camp Affable in Los Angeles, and he was really excited to go back there because it's where he spent 2 years of his life. And so he was excited to connect with a group of boys there, and you know, kind of go through Project with them, because he's kind of reflecting on like what they're thinking and what they're processing. Maybe they're not saying things that are going on in their head, but he has that ability. And so I also do believe that anybody can kind of create trust and community with individuals from different system involved situations. But a lot of times, especially in detention centers, you have, you know, 30 seconds to a minute to become someone that they're going to trust and listen to. And so there is a power in that storyteller for that initial relationship, but then there's also that similar experiences in regards to deeper connection as they're kind of going through these stories and helping them, kind of giving them that visual of something that can be different also. Next slide. So facilitation strategies, as we've developed Project With, we came out of this with a couple of different ideas. And so one, we really want group size 6 to 12. This isn't something like with Love Notes or other programming, you know, 25, 30, or 40 kids in a classroom space, because this is very about conversation, and this is very much about unpacking a story. And it's very similar if anyone has experience with like healing circles, where you're sitting all in that circle with 6 to 12 youth. And the youth sit in a circle, and the other key is that we have is the facilitator sits with them in the circle. So there's an aspect of when someone stands up that there's this aspect of power, but once you sit down and you're in that circle with them, it's that shared learning environment of like, hey, I'm here to learn from you, you're here to learn from me, we're kind of doing this together. And also because a lot of the places that we're at, we use tablets to share the video because we do not have access to Wi-Fi, so we have to have something that can actually have them downloaded and embedded. And a lot of times we don't have access to TVs or presentation, you know, any different thing that you usually use to do presentations. So, but also if you're in a small group, you can have a big enough tablet that everyone can kind of see the video. Ideally, when we first started this, we also have this aspect in our mind, part of the theory of change is that if you share a meal with the youth. So a lot of times when we ran this program, we would do a lesson and then we would have a meal together and then do another lesson. And LA County at that time let us do that, and it really made a huge impact in regards to getting to know the kids in between the lessons. But a lot of the other places that we've gone, we're not even able to do that. And then very important is that journal reflection. And so that's why we've put a lot of energy into thinking and processing about what's going to make the journal something that the kids want to engage in open over something that they're just going to sit there and hold, but also creating value within that. We can keep going. As I said earlier, we use a lot of Post-it notes, and a lot of times, especially when you're building relationships with the kids, they may not want to speak up. Also, they may not trust someone else that's in the room. And so we've used a lot of Post-it notes just to get kids to write their thoughts and turn them over. And as you can see, we use large Post-its also in regards to this, where there is that big idea and then they're able to write and post their thoughts and ideas. And Wested, our evaluator, would also love this because they were automatically getting a lot of feedback in regards to each lesson, in regards just by visibly seeing what kids are posting on these little Post-its. All right, this is usually something that has a lot more conversation, and so I'll just have you guys kind of think and process how does having similar experiences to the youth help create connection. And I think we kind of unpacked that a little bit ago, just in regards to how quickly they're able to build trust, how they can relate to the story of the individuals that are in the room, but also the individuals in the room kind of looking towards those facilitators with similar backgrounds that are now like thriving in life, that may have been in a similar place to them, also creates kind of hope and connection. Creating new stories. So we kind of talked about the story, and then we talked about the storyteller, and there's this aspect of I think all of our hopes and desires that work with system involved youth is to create new stories. And one of the things Project With has done over the years is we have access to this location called Camp Eaton that our partner CSSO owns Camp Eaton, and so they can kind of make sure nobody's there, and it's a great experience for us to take kids up there. And working with LA County, they've always been super helpful, LA County probation, of adding this excursion onto the end. And then other locations, we've just done other fun things, whether it's like go-karts or even Knott's Berry Farm over here in Los Angeles, which is like an amusement park, different things we've done with kids just to get them out of and create some new experiences, and also allow more relationship building time with like the facilitators. All right, I'm just going to talk quickly about the two, and we actually have through the Dibble Institute, we'll also have these things posted on the Dibble Institute page in regards to the two different evaluations that Wested did with us for these two different grants. And so this first one, this quasi-experimental study, was funded on a TPP Tier 2 grant. And so we were given money to, after the formative evaluation of Project With, we were given money to rigorously evaluate it with treatment groups and comparison groups. And then we had a post-program survey also. And all of you probably have ever tried to do a research project with justice involved youth. It is it was, I think I lost all my hair doing that, but very tough. Had so many meetings with Mathematica, who was so helpful of helping us in West Ed regards to putting this together. And so at the very end of this evaluation, that it was at first a 3-year, but because of COVID and everything, we actually extended it to a 4-year process. The study came out that impact on youth engagement and healthy relationships and future planning was significant, and also statistically significant increase in youth reporting future planning behaviors. And so the abstract is under review to be published in the Children and Youth Services Bureau. And so the second one was connected to some FISBE funding of SRE competitive Title V funding here in California. And so out of that study, and we also have that, it'll be on the DIBA website, and it's also on the Project With program website. 81% of youth said Project With made them more likely to make plans to reach their goals. 77 reported a better understanding of what makes a healthy relationship healthy, and 66% said they are more likely to think about consequences before decision makings. So some of the things that we've, and really as we look at each different federal grant that kind of comes out, because we also have a second chance grant that's running Project With inside LA County Probation. But Project With has and been proven and shown favorable aspects in increasing protective factors, improves ability to resist temptation and provocations, increases knowledge and skills to form and sustain healthy relationships, improves planning and decision-making skills, and enhances positive connection and communications with family and caregivers. And so I think there's always different ways as different funding aspects come out in regards to whether it's like a healthy relationship grant, whether it's a recidivism grant, whether it's an intervention grant, all those different things. We're constantly seeing how Project With kind of partners with different whether it's case management, whether it's we do blending with Mind Matters from the Dibble Institute, different ways that we're able to implement these things. And so besides us having it, this program being offered and opportunity to connect with it on Dibble, we also are still actively kind of running the program throughout the state of California, mostly in Southern California under the agency that I'm now with, which is AbleWorks, with some Title V SRAE funding and also that second chance kind of funding. All right, we can move to the next one, I think, as we wrap up. This was one of the statements kind of pulled from one of our youth participants during the study is we need people to show us that path out of here. And some people say we're lost causes, but not the facilitators. And so we've worked with an amazing team. Like I tell Kay and Dibble that, you know, they wanted to put my name on the curriculum, but it's really been a journey with so many different agencies from CSSO, Homies, Why Not. SAY has been a part of this, a gang intervention organization in Los Angeles. JJack from San Diego has been with us, been a number of individuals that helped us pick the stories, helped us pick the activities, helped us develop the different activities, and also a lot of the videos are developed just for Project With that we wanted to kind of make sure it got across the points. So I think that ends me not breathing while I'm talking, Kay. I can't hear you, Kay.
Thank you. You'd think by 5 years by now I would have figured this out.
Yeah.
So want to ask you some questions we're getting. I saw that the slide says the curriculum is research-based. Let's see, what is this? What is the person saying? I can't see the rest of the question. So can you tell us about when you say does this mean Project With is evidence-based? Is this the bar for the grants we're applying for, to use evidence-based curriculum and practices? So you and I can probably both answer that.
You can go first, and then
okay. So when we use the word research-based, it means it's based on research. And so the fundamental research of this comes from The Art of Loving Well, which just shows the power of stories. And The Art of Loving Well had 41 stories that they taught to 8th grade students, so a different population. But the onset of sexual activity in the 8th graders fell by a factor of 3. In other words, like 8 would start having sex out of 100 instead of 24 with the kids with Art of Loving Well. So that's the premise we worked on in terms of research. There's the evidence, which John talked about. For pregnancy prevention, we don't have, this cannot be called an evidence-based program because it's not. So what we didn't say is that while there were improvements in the intervention group, there are also improvements in the control group, or not as many improvements in the intervention group. So we can't use it as a pregnancy prevention intervention, but there are other grants that don't have that strict evidence requirement, like the Teen Pregnancy Prevention does. So Healthy Marriage, it's eligible, we believe, for assuming Healthy Marriage comes out, and we're pretty sure it will. Healthy Marriage, I think some of the OJJDP, the planfulness and the ability to look at the future are huge prevention and assets, building out protective assets. So John, anything else on research?
No, I think that's the aspect of more the certificates that stat significance is around the planfulness aspects and those different items, and we're doing more, and we're looking at more opportunities to do more research. So it definitely doesn't hit the window of the TPP aspect, but it has with SRIE. We do believe in Healthy Marriage and it can, we believe also in some of the DOJ. It really depends on what each federal grant that comes out or state grant comes out, what the bar they're looking for.
Right. So John, you talked a lot about the system that you're most familiar with is juvenile justice, but do you have any thoughts about using the same content in child welfare systems and where it might fit and how you might, how that would?
Yeah, so we also run at placement locations, which are very similar to group homes, and some people call them group homes. But so in these residential homes, youth are there, are residing there as a part of their probation, or maybe they just don't have somewhere to go back to while they're on probation. And so pretty much in those, in that setting, we're running them in living rooms with usually not even 6 kids. Usually it's like, 3 to 5 kids a lot of times in those different locations. And we feel that would work in the same way if it was just a traditional foster youth or even at different locations in the community. And I think the key is we're in conversations with a lot of schools that have kids with behavioral contracts and different things. I think the idea is just in running it is having that small group and not trying to see how many people you can put in a room and take through the curriculum. I think the real value add is when you're in that, under 12, sitting in a circle, having that discussion. I think even just regular kids in the community would have, there would be a huge value add.
Yeah, yesterday we read an article about in San Diego, they're doing a literacy project because obviously young people need to read, and their chances are better of having a better life if you can read. And so you could also imagine using Project With as the fund, as a cornerstone of a larger literacy project. The content's interesting, the subject matter is engaging, and so I think that could work as well. So John, if you had to ask yourself, what do I wish I'd known then that I know now about implementing Project With, what would you say to people? What do you wish what have you learned the hard way?
Gathering data. like if it was just running the program and creating great experiences for the kids, I think that's the fun part. I think the aspect of doing the groundwork and making sure, especially if you're connected to any type of funding that has performance measures, is doing that legwork and making sure wherever you're going into, you understand the aspect of how it looks to gather data, and then also making sure you put money aside to like create some incentive from surveys, because kids don't like long surveys. And so I think that's one of the aspects. And then I think the other belief is like, you never know what's going to happen. Like just being flexible, like, and that's really where we try to strengthen the facilitators to know, like, hey, if you get kicked out of this room, just sit at a picnic table, like, you know, like just stay flexible and kid-centric, and just, I think that's the other aspect, because you can get so stressed out by feeling like you're bound by a curriculum or something, but within these different environments that you're working in, you never know what's going to happen. So it's like, be kid-centric. Yeah, you're trying to do fidelity and everything, but like very kid-focused.
Right. And you found that you were doing 2 lessons at a time with a meal in between. So you were meeting, let's say, over 6 weeks, but I'm assuming it could also work once a week or once a day. Or...
Yeah, so we've done it. Because we don't want anything to last longer than 6 weeks, because you can lose people in different ways. And so a lot of times at some placement locations, which are those home environments, there's just a lot more distractions. So it was hard to do 2 hours. So our team just did like Tuesdays and Thursdays, Monday or Wednesdays, because like working with the house, we're like, hey, it would be way better to get it done like in 6 weeks than 12 weeks. And then we've also we're testing out, we're working with someone, we're going to try to do a camp, like a 3-day camp, and we would run like all 12 sessions kind of embedded in a camp. So I wouldn't try to go through it all in one day, like, but if you had a 2 or 3 days, you know what I mean? So that would be another way.
Great. So people have asked about how to find more information about this. So the Dibble Institute, dibbleinstitute.org, has a tab along the top that says our programs. And if you pull that down, you'll find Project With, and that's the landing page for Project With. You'll find the sample lesson, the table of contents, the big ideas, the background, et cetera, et cetera. And you can request a review copy there. Many of you have requested review copies, and we'll be sending that out tonight and tomorrow. Taylor asked about getting a copy of the PowerPoint. We will be posting this webinar and the PowerPoint and the sample lesson on our website. That's under free resources, webinars, you know, and we'll probably have a link back on the page. So just to clarify here for a second. So John, the amazing entrepreneurial go-get-em John, is running Project With actively in Southern California and has funding to do that through some, as he said, Second Chance grants, and I think Title V, right? Something like that. So if you're lucky enough to be in Southern California and you have a population of young people you'd like to get involved with John, we'll get his email really quickly. What the Dibble Institute did was publish Project With. So we're trying to figure out how do we say these things differently. So there's the Project With project, right, which is John's doing, and we have the Project With program, which are the 12 lessons in a binder, everything you need to teach. We have a treasure chest in the sky with the videos. You do need to, we've realized you have to buy a premium YouTube subscription in order to download them so you can see them inside. Many places don't have Wi-Fi. So today is the first day that the sample lessons are going to, or the review copies are going to be available, and presses are about to start up, and we'll be able to mail you the Project With program in early May. So to gauge interest and to help us, you know, pay for what we want to print, we have a 20% off deal. So if you order Project With materials between now and the end of the month, you'll get 20% off the entire program. We never run sales. We just do this whenever we're doing a new program, and it helps us get things going. So again, that's on our website on the landing page, and we'll also include it in the follow-up email that we have to you here. Okay, are there any other? So the sample lesson, right. So the sample lesson is also uploaded onto this tab. Thank you, Amy. It's on your control panel. And so you could go teach that. It has the story, it has the how to do it. It's all there. Let's see, anything else we've forgotten? So those of you out there in webinar land, it's your last chance. Okay. Well, John, we appreciate you and all the work you've put in on this. There will be a brief survey, and if it's a place, if you haven't requested a review copy yet, to request it in that survey. We'll be posting this webinar in the next couple of days and sending you an email when that's ready. And if you have any questions, ask our friendly staff at Relationship Skills at dibbleInstitute.org. They, operators are standing by for sure. And her name is Han, just saying. And so we're super excited next month, and Joanne may be on the call today. Joanne Lamlumi, who is also from the Los Angeles area, is doing some very interesting work using Mind Matters in the behavioral health space. She has state funding to do that. And so we're going to hear about how she's working with foster youth and on a behavioral health project. So if there's nothing else, no other questions are coming in. Well, pleased to have you all today. Thank you, John, for your contribution for helping make the world an even better place than it is. So thank you so much. And we'll see all you next month. Take care. Bye-bye.